Tony Award winner and legendary actress Angela Lansbury has died at 96. A statement from her family said she died peacefully in her sleep at her home in Los Angeles earlier this morning. Now, she was one of the brightest stars on Broadway, winning 5 Tony Awards and a Lifetime Achievement Award.
5 days before she died, Angela Lansbury sat down to write. After 80 years in Hollywood, the murder. She wrote Star had one last message for her fans. What she wrote left them in tears. Memories of escaping war-torn London, fighting ageism in Hollywood, and saving her children from a deadly cult. But the most emotional part is her final words about the role that changed television forever.
I got to tell you, as an actress, I was ready to throw in the sponge. But as I've always said, you know, when you're involved in a very, very successful show, which is really riding the crest, you can't walk away. It's very, very hard. And I wasn't about to walk away. But I didn't. But I managed to, I was very well represented.
Angela Lansbury was born on October 16, 1925, in London, England. Her mother was an actress who performed in plays alongside famous people. Her father was a businessman and a politician. Angela's grandfather even helped start the Labour Party in Britain. She grew up surrounded by exciting conversations about art and politics. But when Angela was just 9, her father died from stomach cancer. This was a hard time for her, and she started using her imagination to escape from her sadness. Her family also moved to Hampstead after her mother began a new relationship with a man named Lecky Forbes. In 1939, when World War II began, Angela's life changed a lot. London became dangerous because of the bombing, so her family decided to leave. In 1940, Angela, her mother, and her brothers boarded a ship to North America. The journey was scary because German submarines were attacking ships at sea. Just after they left Liverpool, the city was heavily bombed. Luckily, their ship made it safely to Canada, but Angela later found out that the same ship was sunk by a submarine shortly after their trip. She said, "We didn't know how close we came to dying." The family moved to New York, where Angela's mother found work helping British children who had also left their homes because of the war. In New York, Angela started to focus on acting. She got a scholarship to study drama and performed in small plays. These early roles taught her how to act and prepared her for bigger things. By 1942, Angela and her family were living in Los Angeles. To help support them, Angela got a job at a fancy department store called Bullock's Wilshire. She worked in the cosmetics section, selling makeup and perfume. Her mother worked in the toy department. Angela learned how to talk to different people and act confident, even if she was nervous. She later said she wasn't good at math, but could charm customers into forgetting any mistakes. Even though it was just a job, Angela dreamed of one day being a star in Hollywood. In 1944, her big chance came. Her mother heard about an audition for a movie called Gaslight. The filmmakers wanted a young English girl to play a maid. Angela went to the audition, and even though she was nervous, she did her best. The casting team loved her performance and gave her the role. Angela couldn't believe it. At just 17 years old, she had landed her first movie part. She also signed a big contract with MGM, earning $500 a week, which was a huge amount at the time. Gaslight was a big movie starring Ingrid Bergman and Charles Boyer. Angela played Nancy, a maid who had an important role in the story. The movie was a hit, and people loved Angela's performance. She even got nominated for an Oscar, which was amazing for someone so young and new to acting. Angela didn't win, but the nomination was enough to make Hollywood notice her. After her success in Gaslight, her next big role was in The Picture of Dorian Gray, 1945. She played Sybil Vane, a singer who falls for the mysterious and dangerous Dorian Gray. This role earned her an Oscar nomination at only 20 years old. Imagine that. Barely out of her teens, she'd already bagged back-to-back nominations and even won her first Golden Globe. Hollywood hadn't seen anything like it. But Angela wasn't just about one kind of role. She could do anything. In National Velvet, 1944, she played Elizabeth Taylor's big sister, Edwina. Interestingly, Lansbury was only 2 years older than Taylor in real life, but she played the mature, responsible sibling so perfectly, you'd never guess. The movie was a hit, raking in millions, and Lansbury's calm, steady performance added depth to the story. Then, just 2 years later, she went in a completely different direction. In The Harvey Girls, 1946, she played M, a feisty, no-nonsense dance hall queen. Critics loved her sharp, witty performance, calling it wickedly fine. She even rehearsed for weeks to nail her dance routines, proving how far she'd go to make her roles unforgettable. These two wildly different performances showed Hollywood that Angela Lansbury was no ordinary actress. She could do it all. Even with all her talent, though, Lansbury had to fight a frustrating battle. Hollywood loved casting her in supporting roles, often as older women, when she was still in her 20s and 30s. It didn't make sense. She played Elvis Presley's mom in Blue Hawaii, 1961, when she was only 36, while Elvis was 26. In The Manchurian Candidate, 1962, she played the manipulative mother of a man just 3 years younger than her. Angela later said it felt like a constant fight against being boxed in as the other woman, or a middle-aged character, when she wasn't even close to that in real life. Still, she didn't let it break her. Lansbury spent 7 years at MGM, starting in 1945. They recognized her talent and signed her to a big contract, but they mostly kept her in supporting roles. She worked on 11 films, including hits like The Harvey Girls and The Three Musketeers, 1948. By 1952, Angela had had enough. She asked MGM to release her from her contract, taking a huge risk to take control of her career. Leaving MGM was bold, but it gave her the freedom to explore theater, where she'd eventually find her true calling. Meanwhile, when Angela Lansbury was just 19 years old, she married Richard Cromwell on September 27, 1945. At the time, Angela was just starting her Hollywood career after her breakout role in Gaslight. Richard was 35, much older and already well known for movies like Jezebel and Young Mr. Lincoln. Angela was swept away by his charm and artistic personality. She later admitted that she was fascinated by him. Their romance moved quickly, and they had a quiet wedding in California. Angela was young and eager for stability, and this marriage seemed like it could bring her that. But the marriage didn't last. After just 9 months, they separated in June 1946, and Angela filed for divorce in September. This shocked everyone. At that time, divorce wasn't common, especially for someone like Angela, who was still trying to make a name for herself in Hollywood. Neither Angela nor Richard talked about why it ended, leaving people to guess. Richard once made a strange comment, joking that Angela's habit of making tea in the middle of the night drove him crazy. But that didn't explain much. Years later, Angela said marrying him was a mistake she made as a young woman. Still, she didn't regret it, seeing it as a lesson that helped her grow. What Angela didn't know during their marriage was that Richard was gay. She found out after their divorce, and it came as a huge shock to her. Angela later said she had no idea when they got married, and was heartbroken when she discovered the truth. Back in the 1940s, being gay was highly stigmatized and even illegal in many places. Richard might have hoped marriage would hide his true self or change him, which was sadly a common belief at the time. Even with all this, Angela chose not to hold any grudges. She stayed friends with Richard, and they kept in touch for years. Richard even remained close to Angela's second husband, Peter Shaw. Angela later said their friendship helped her move past the heartbreak. When Richard passed away in 1960, their bond had lasted almost 15 years after their divorce. Angela Lansbury became unforgettable in The Manchurian Candidate, 1962. She played Eleanor Iselin, a cold, manipulative woman who controlled everything around her. Eleanor wasn't just a typical villain. Angela gave her layers, showing both a public face of respectability and a private, ruthless schemer. This role was so powerful that it shocked audiences and earned Angela her third Oscar nomination. One scene especially stands out. Eleanor talks to her son, Raymond, about her plan for political control. In this scene, Angela showed emotions that ranged from anger to a strange kind of excitement, and it left people stunned. It's surprising that Angela almost didn't get the role. Frank Sinatra, the movie's star, wanted Lucille Ball to play Eleanor, but the director, John Frankenheimer, insisted on Angela. He had worked with her before and believed she was perfect for the role. He was right. Her performance became the most memorable part of the movie. Something even more surprising is that Angela was only 37 when she played the role of Raymond's mother. The actor who played Raymond, Lawrence Harvey, was just 3 years younger. To look the part, Angela wore aging makeup, stiff hairstyles, and matronly clothing. Her performance was so convincing that people were shocked to learn her real age. She had done this kind of role before, playing Elvis Presley's mother in Blue Hawaii at just 36. Angela later said she didn't enjoy being typecast as older characters, but she always gave these roles her best. In 1957, Angela tried something new: Broadway. Her first show was Hotel Paradiso, a light comedy about romantic chaos in a Paris hotel. Angela played a wife planning to cheat on her husband. The play wasn't a huge hit, but Angela's performance was charming, and it helped her learn the ropes of live theater. At this point, she had been in Hollywood for over 10 years and had already been nominated for 2 Oscars. Moving to Broadway was a risk, but it showed her bravery and talent. Angela's real breakthrough in theater came in 1966 when she starred in the Broadway musical Mame. Before this, she was well known as a good actress, but this role changed her life. The show opened on May 24th at the Winter Garden Theater and was based on the book Anti-Mame. Many people thought the role would go to a bigger Broadway star, but Angela wanted it badly. She worked hard to prepare, learning songs, dances, and handling over 20 costume changes. It was a huge challenge, but Angela saw it as her big chance. When Mame opened, everyone loved her. Critics said she was charming, funny, and graceful. The show became a massive hit, running for over 1,500 performances until 1970. Angela won her first Tony Award for Best Actress, proving she could shine in musicals even though she hadn't done much of that before. The role made her a Broadway icon and gave her a loyal fan base. Many in the LGBTQ+ community especially loved her because Mame was bold, glamorous, and full of life. Angela later said the love from the audience made this time unforgettable. Another big moment in Angela's career came when she worked with Stephen Sondheim, one of Broadway's greatest composers. They first teamed up on Anyone Can Whistle in 1964. The show didn't last long, but it showed Angela's willingness to try something different. Their most famous project together was Sweeney Todd in 1979. Angela played Mrs. Lovett, a baker who helps the murderous Sweeney Todd. The role was dark and complex, but also funny. Angela's performance brought the character to life, mixing humor with madness. Her songs, like The Worst Pies in London and A Little Priest, became iconic. Even though the role was physically and emotionally tough, Angela gave it her all, performing 8 shows a week at age 53. This earned her a 4th Tony Award, showing just how talented and hardworking she was. Angela's Broadway career is legendary. She won 5 Tony Awards for Best Actress, each for a completely different role. First, she won for Mame in 1966. Then, in 1969, she won for Dear World, where she played Countess Aurelia. In 1975, she won again for her powerful role as Rose in Gypsy. Her 4th win came in 1979 for Sweeney Todd. Finally, in 2009, at the age of 83, she won for her funny and eccentric role in Blithe Spirit. In 2022, Angela received a special Tony Award for Lifetime Achievement. This honor celebrated her long career and her huge impact on Broadway. Her dedication and talent made her one of the most loved and respected stars in theater history. Angela Lansbury's journey to becoming Jessica Fletcher in Murder, She Wrote, was unexpected and life-changing. In 1984, at 59 years old, she took on the role that would define her career. What's surprising is that she wasn't even the first choice. The role was written for Jean Stapleton, famous from All in the Family. But after Stapleton turned it down, Lansbury got the chance. Around the same time, she received 2 offers, one for a comedy show and the other for the pilot of Murder, She Wrote. Everyone told her to take the comedy role, but Lansbury followed her instincts and chose the drama. It was a bold decision, especially since TV wasn't seen as prestigious back then, and she was already an award-winning actress in film and theater. But something about Jessica Fletcher felt right to her. The show became a massive hit, running for 12 years, from 1984 to 1996. Millions of people tuned in every week to watch Jessica solve crimes. At its peak, the show had 30 million viewers weekly, more than the entire population of Australia at the time. It aired in over 100 countries, making Jessica Fletcher famous all over the world. When Lansbury visited Italy in 1989, she was mobbed by fans and needed police to protect her. The show also earned critical acclaim, with 16 Emmy nominations and 10 Golden Globe nominations. Lansbury herself was nominated 12 times for Best Actress, a record, and she won 4 Golden Globes. Week after week, the show stayed popular, ranking in the top 15 for most of its run. It even reached number 3 in the ratings at one point, proving how much people loved the show. In 1992, Lansbury became an executive producer on the show. This was a big deal, especially for a woman at that time. She had control over the scripts, casting, and the overall direction of the show. Lansbury was very hands-on and even rejected ideas she felt didn't suit Jessica's character. For example, she insisted that Jessica remain a widow instead of having a romantic storyline. She believed Jessica's independence made her more relatable and interesting. Lansbury also pushed to hire older actors who were often ignored in Hollywood, bringing in big names like Mickey Rooney and June Allison for guest roles. Her attention to detail was unmatched. She once paused filming to adjust the shade of Jessica's lipstick. She even worked to improve conditions for the crew, fighting for better hours and benefits. Playing Jessica Fletcher changed Lansbury's life. Before the show, she was already famous for her work on stage and in films, but this role made her one of the most recognized faces on TV. What's incredible is that she took on this role in her 60s, at a time when Hollywood often sidelined older actresses. Jessica Fletcher's active, sharp-witted character broke stereotypes about aging and inspired audiences worldwide. At the peak of her career, Lansbury earned $300,000 per episode, making her one of the highest-paid actresses on TV. By the end of the series, her net worth had grown to an estimated $70 million. While Lansbury sometimes felt that Jessica overshadowed her earlier work, she also knew how special the role was. It brought her incredible fame and cemented her as a television legend. Angela Lansbury's journey into voice acting started with her role as Mrs. Potts in Disney's Beauty and the Beast in 1991. She was 65 at the time and wasn't sure if she was the right fit. Singing worried her the most. She thought her voice might not be good enough anymore. But when she went to record the famous song Beauty and the Beast, she surprised everyone. On October 6, 1990, after a scary flight delayed by a bomb threat, she arrived shaken but ready. With almost no preparation, she sang the song in just one take. Everyone in the room was stunned, some even cried. That performance became legendary and won an Oscar for Best Original Song. Lansbury's gentle and warm voice made Mrs. Potts a character loved by all. This role changed her career and opened the door to many more voice acting opportunities. Mrs. Potts wasn't always meant to be the motherly teapot we know. At first, the character was supposed to be a French maid called Mrs. Chamomile. But when Lansbury joined, the team reimagined her, and it turned out to be the perfect choice. Thanks to her, Beauty and the Beast became a massive success. It was the first animated film to ever be nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. After this, Lansbury lent her voice to other big films. In Anastasia, 1997, she played the Dowager Empress, Anastasia's grandmother. This was her first non-Disney role in animation. Lansbury's voice made the character feel regal, yet emotional, as the grandmother longed for her lost granddaughter. One of the film's most touching moments, the scene leading into the song Once Upon a December, began with Lansbury's heartfelt lines. Her role added depth to the story and helped the film become a hit. Many years later, at 93 years old, Lansbury voiced Mayor McGurkle in The Grinch, 2018. Even though it was a small role, she brought warmth and charm to the character. She recorded all her lines in one session, showing she still had the dedication and energy that made her a legend. What made Lansbury's voice acting so special was her ability to create emotion with just her voice. She once said that voice acting was like painting with sound. She used every tool, pitch, tone, and rhythm, to bring her characters to life. Angela Lansbury's journey to finding love wasn't easy. When she was 19, she married Richard Cromwell, but the marriage only lasted a year. She was heartbroken when she found out he was gay. Still, Angela didn't give up on love. A few years later, in 1949, at a party in California, she met Peter Shaw, an actor from England. They felt a deep connection right away. Angela described it as like their hearts locking together. She knew he was the one, and even broke tradition by asking him to marry her. But things weren't simple. Both Angela and Peter had been married before, and the Church of England wouldn't allow them to marry. They didn't let this stop them. They found another church and got married in London in 1949. After their wedding, they spent their honeymoon in France and then moved back to California. They settled in Angela's home in Malibu, starting a new life together. A couple of years later, they became U.S. citizens but kept their British roots. Their marriage lasted 54 years, which is rare, especially in Hollywood. Peter stopped acting and became Angela's manager, helping her career grow. In 1987, they started a company together called Coramore Productions. This company helped create Angela's most famous show, Murder, She Wrote. They also worked on other TV shows and movies together. Their teamwork was amazing because Peter handled the business side, and Angela focused on her acting. Angela often said their marriage worked because they respected each other and enjoyed being together. They didn't care much about Hollywood parties and preferred staying home and spending time with their family. They had 3 children, Anthony, Deirdre, and David, Peter's son from his first marriage. Anthony followed in his mom's footsteps, directing many episodes of Murder, She Wrote. Deirdre, after a wild youth, opened an Italian restaurant with her husband. David worked behind the scenes in TV and film, but things weren't always perfect. In the 1960s, Anthony and Deirdre got into drugs. Anthony even had a near-fatal overdose. To make things worse, Deirdre briefly got involved with Charles Manson's cult. Angela and Peter were terrified for their kids. In 1970, they made a bold choice. They moved the entire family to Ireland. Angela believed the quiet countryside would help save her children. She took a break from acting and focused completely on her family. In Ireland, life slowed down. Angela cooked, cared for the home, and kept her kids close. This change worked. Both Anthony and Deirdre recovered and found new paths in life. Angela later said, moving to Ireland saved her family. Angela Lansbury wrote a heartfelt letter to her fans after Murder. She Wrote ended in 1996. The show had been on TV for 12 years, becoming a huge favorite for so many people. It aired on Sunday nights and was always one of the top shows. But in its last season, CBS moved it to Thursday nights, putting it up against Friends. This caused a big drop in viewers, and the show got canceled. Fans were upset because they loved Jessica Fletcher, the smart and kind detective who solved mysteries in her little town of Cabot Cove. Angela, who was 70 years old at the time, had already thought about retiring. The show was hard work, and since 1988, she had been doing fewer episodes so she could rest more. By 1996, it was clear the show was ending for good. To thank her fans, Angela wrote a letter that was published in the New York Post on May 19, 1996. She wrote, "Dear friends, let me just say that I am simply overwhelmed by the warmth and sincerity of your wonderful messages, and I feel tremendously comforted by your support. I think you know I have always held you, our audience, in the highest regard. And believe me, I shared your disappointment in the way things turned out. But now I'm looking forward to new beginnings, and, down the line, Murder, She Wrote Movies of the Week. My love and gratitude to you all for letting me know how much you've enjoyed Murder, She Wrote over the past 12 years. Angela." The letter had a huge impact. For many viewers, the show was more than just a weekly mystery. It brought comfort, especially to older women who admired Jessica Fletcher. She was sharp, independent, and never gave up, which inspired them to believe in themselves. After the letter came out, fans wrote back to Angela and even to CBS, asking for the show to return. Some fan clubs held events to celebrate Jessica Fletcher, and people shared stories about how much the show had meant to them. One really touching story came from a retirement community in Florida. The residents watched the show together every week. After reading Angela's letter, they decided to write back. They sent her a collage filled with photos and messages from over 200 people. They thanked her for creating a character who felt like part of their family, someone who made them feel strong and proud of their own wisdom. Angela Lansbury was 88 when she finally got her honorary Oscar in 2013. The event happened on November 16th, in a big Hollywood ceremony full of famous people like Tom Hanks and Emma Thompson. Angela walked onto the stage wearing a beautiful black dress with gold designs. The crowd stood up and clapped for almost 3 minutes. She smiled and joked, saying, "You can't imagine how happy and proud I feel. Really undeserving of this gorgeous golden chap." It was a big moment for her, especially since it came 70 years after she was first nominated for Gaslight in 1944. Over the years, she had been nominated 3 times, but had never won, making this award feel like Hollywood was finally making things right. But Angela wasn't just about acting. She cared deeply about helping others. During the AIDS crisis in the 1980s and 1990s, she worked hard to raise money for research and support for patients. She lost close friends to the disease, which made her even more determined to help. In 1996, Broadway held a special event called Angela Lansbury, a celebration. It honored her acting and all the work she did for AIDS charities, raising over $1 million. Angela gave a powerful speech there, telling everyone to never give up the fight until the war is won. She didn't stop there. In 1987, she performed at a big event in Chicago that raised another $1 million for AIDS research. She also appeared on holiday cards to raise even more money. Angela also cared about animals and spoke out about treating them with kindness. She encouraged people to adopt pets from shelters and not buy them from breeders. Her words and actions showed how much she believed in helping others, whether they were people or animals. She once said, "We have a responsibility to help those who cannot help themselves." Angela passed away peacefully on October 11, 2022, just 5 days before her 97th birthday. Her death felt like the end of an era. People all over the world shared their sadness and memories of her. Broadway even dimmed its lights to honor her, which is something they only do for legends. Many famous people spoke about her kindness and talent. Jason Alexander called her one of the most graceful and classy ladies he had ever met. George Takei said she was our beloved Mrs. Potts and praised her work on Broadway and in film. Everyone seemed to agree that Angela wasn't just a star, she was someone who inspired others with her warmth, talent, and passion for making a difference.